Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, we're going to talk about the big news in real estate over the last week. Premier David Eby's new 4-point housing plan, which is to bring more housing supply to the market. And I'm briefly going to touch on some of the stats that we saw for March. Real quick before we get started, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you in your real estate journey. I also make content designed to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. And if you want to talk about your situation one-on-one, you can book me on the Calendly link below. All right, so Premier David Eby in this last week came out with his 4-point housing plan, definitely the talk of the real estate community over the last week. Let's touch on what some of these changes are going to be. The big one for me is addressing the missing middle of housing. And the missing middle, just to give you a background, is basically that missing component of housing between a detached home and a condo building. So think families that, can't live their lives within a condo unit, but they can't, of course, afford that detached home. So we're talking about duplexes, triplexes, row homes, sometimes sixplexes, like in the city of Victoria. Within the last month, they have come out and said that single family lots will allow for sixplexes. Now here in BC, this missing middle has been a significant problem, specifically in the Vancouver area, where we have 85% of the land in Vancouver proper zoned for single family homes, which, as you and I both know, it's out of reach from an affordability perspective for most people. So this is really promising news. How the provincial government has come out and said it is they will allow in several communities for 3 to 4 units on a standard lot. Now, just to give you some perspective, the city of Vancouver has been looking at doing this as well. They're talking about it this year. What they said is they were going to look at a model where they would allow 4-plex on a standard 4,000 square foot lot, 4,026 square foot lot, which is more standard in Vancouver East, and in Vancouver West, where the lots are larger, around 6,000 square feet, that they would allow for sixplexes. Again, something that's been in motion. So David Eby coming out with this announcement is basically saying, you're not going to be deliberating on this. This is going to happen. Your job at the city level, municipal level, is figuring out how, not if. And so the provincial government is kind of, as they've been doing over the last several months, they're putting the heat on the municipalities to get this done. I do want to see how it plays out in terms of the actual square footage that'll be allowable. Will it be 3 or 4 units on a 4,000 square foot lot? I like the City of Vancouver plan because it brings more housing when we talk about 4-plexes and 6-plexes. So some stuff is up in the air right now. We don't know exactly which communities will be involved, but Vancouver, of course, is assured to be involved in this program, and likely several others across Metro Vancouver as well. So the second portion of this plan is basically to allow for secondary suites right across the province. Now there's some confusion in terms of, okay, existing unauthorized suites, do those become legal overnight? And that's not what's happening here. What's happening is the provincial government is addressing certain communities around the province that don't even allow for secondary suites. That's not going to happen anymore. BC is basically coming out, the government, and saying that every community across BC will be allowed to have secondary suites. Of course, how it works in the Vancouver area, many of these suites are unauthorized. People do often take on that risk when they're purchasing properties or they're renting them out. So it's not that these unauthorized suites are going to become legal overnight. To be a legal suite, there's a lot of components to that. Of course, it has to be safe in case of a fire. There's a lot of course, insurance, legalities, etc., that are into play to make a suite legal. So they can't flip the switch on something like that. But communities across BC will allow for secondary suites. Now, the third piece of this program, and this is actually pretty unique, is the provincial government is going to pay homeowners to create these secondary suites within their home up to a maximum of $40,000 over 5 years. And that would be for 50% of the budget that it costs to renovate and create this home. Now the caveat, to create this secondary suite within the home. Now the caveat with this is you have to rent that out below market for 5 years. So government's going to give you money. It's a forgivable loan as well. So they're going to give you money to basically do this renovation. You need to provide back to the community with a below market rental unit for at least 5 years. They're going to pilot this project before rolling it out. I think they said approximately 3,000 homeowners are going to be a part of this pilot project. I think it's unique. I think it's a good idea. I think we haven't seen anything like this before. Is it going to completely move the needle? Obviously not, because it's a pilot program to start. We don't know how successful it's going to be and whether it be rolled out in more communities or across a larger population, but let's wait and see. Now, the other thing that the provincial government has come out and said is the anti-flipping tax is coming. They're going to discourage more people from flipping properties. Now, here in BC, we did have that launch as of January 1st, where if you sell a property outside of certain exemptions within a year, they're going to take the amount of your profit and treat it as business income, the full amount essentially, and treat that as business income. So I don't know if they're going to be amending how this sort of works, if they're going to be changing the parameters. There are exceptions to this anti-flipping tax, so we're going to have to wait and see, but follow along on this channel because it's definitely something I'm going to cover in the future. And lastly, real quick, is they want to target short-term rentals, Airbnb style rentals. When it comes from a condo perspective, a lot of these condos don't allow for short-term rentals anyways, and less buildings are allowing for them, as residents tend to have some issues with them. So I don't think this is going to move the needle at all, but I think for the provincial government, it's a couple things. When I look at how they might choose to restrict or work on these short-term rentals, I can only see a couple ways. Additional fees, additional taxes, that would be pretty common from governments to see. But at the same time, in doing so, they could also be appeasing the hotel associations. Now, I have friends in the hotel business, and they really went through a tough time during COVID, and they've had to endure that all. And now, their next battle for them is Airbnb. Obviously, these hotels, significant investments, and they're so important to tourism into our country. So this may be a way for provincial government to kind of appease a couple sides and bring some more rental units, long-term rental units, to the market. All right, so super quick, I'm going to touch on the March stats, and we've seen for a third consecutive month in Metro Vancouver, sales prices rising. East Vancouver detached, I can say the median price since January of a detached home is up $200,000 to 1.8. And the biggest, I think, shock to me for the stats in March is that detached homes led the way in price growth month over month. It's been a very long time since we've seen that. It's typically townhouses or condos, but usually townhouses that are leading that charge. 3 consecutive months, that's a trend. Again, more into Metro Vancouver in the detached home segment. Outside of West Vancouver and Tawasin, every other Metro Vancouver community was in a seller's market. Does this make sense based on where interest rates are at, state of the economy, inflation? No, this is clearly driven by a lack of supply in the market. We still haven't seen any additional supply hit. So until and if that happens, I think we're going to continue to see this trend with prices. We just had another jobs report come out where we exceeded analyst expectations 3 times. I think we added about 35,000 jobs across the country. A lot of these in the private sector, which typically is a sign of businesses growing and flourishing. When they are adding jobs, it's different when there's public sector jobs, which is not a sign of the economy essentially thriving, or at least growing in some sense. Bank of Canada has an announcement next week in terms of interest rates. I think they're going to hold the rate. There's talk about some small levels of turmoil within financial institutions in Canada. I don't know if I see it that way, but I do think that the Bank of Canada is going to stand pat. What I think that's going to do for the market, there's already confidence in the market right now. I think if the Bank of Canada comes out and pauses yet again, I can tell you when that happened last time, my phone started ringing almost immediately with people that wanted to get back in the market. So another rate pause like I expect, I think it's going to bring even more people back into the real estate market. So there you have it, guys. I hope that you learned something in this video. If you did, I'd love it if you could hit the like button and consider subscribing to this channel. What that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can also learn from it. If you're in the Vancouver area and you want to talk about your real estate situation one-on-one with me, you can book me on the Calendly link below, or you can just send me a text, give me a call, send me an email, whatever's easiest for you. I'd love to chat with you one-on-one. But outside of that, thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful day.